Silent stars burned against the velvet void beyond the thick observation windows of Luna Station. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her interface headset and reached for her coffee mug without looking. Her eyes fixed on the scrolling data streams of alien communications. This particular shift, like hundreds before it, had yielded nothing unexpected. Trade negotiations between the Varaxians and Telsian merchants, routine patrol reports from Galactic Council peacekeepers, and the constant background chatter of thousands of civilizations going about their business. For most of them, humans were simply not part of the equation. Elena had gotten used to the silent treatment. Earth had been discovered 50 years ago, and in that time, humanity had earned itself an unenviable reputation as Deathworlders, the dangerous, unpredictable species that evolved on a planet most aliens considered uninhabitable. Too much gravity, too much radiation, too many predators, too many natural disasters. The fact that humans could not only survive but thrive in such conditions made the galactic community deeply uncomfortable. It was ironic, Elena thought, that she spent her days eavesdropping on conversations where her entire species was either feared or ignored. The Galactic Council had established strict quarantine protocols for Earth. Humanity could observe, but not participate, learn, but not contribute. Luna Station was one of the few sanctioned listening posts, designed to monitor alien communications while keeping humanity safely contained. "Another thrilling day in cosmic exile," she murmured, finally locating her coffee mug and taking a sip of the lukewarm liquid. Commander Reyes, the station's technical officer, glanced up from his console with a weary smile. "What were you expecting, Dr. Vasquez? An invitation to the Council's centennial celebration?" "I'd settle for acknowledgement of our existence," Elena replied, adjusting her neural interface to filter out the usual background chatter. 3 doctoral degrees in xenolinguistics, and I spend my days essentially reading alien spam messages." "Better than them reading ours," Reyes countered. "I hear the Arcturians are still traumatized after intercepting human social media. Something about cat videos being classified as psychological warfare." Elena chuckled, about to respond when a sudden flurry of alerts flashed across her console. She frowned, setting down her coffee mug as 17 distinct transmission bursts simultaneously registered across multiple frequencies. "That's unusual," she murmured, fingers flying across the haptic interface. Then the alarms triggered. The monitoring room's ambient lighting shifted to pulsing red as the emergency protocols activated. Elena's coffee mug toppled, spilling dark liquid across her desk as she stared at the incoming transmissions. All 17 signals originated from the same distant star system. "Cathora," she breathed, recognizing the coordinates from astronomical surveys. "Commander, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the Cathoran system." Reyes was already beside her, his previous casualness replaced by military efficiency. "Classification? Definitely SOS patterns. I'm running them through the translation matrix now. But..." She paused, listening through her neural interface to the raw audio. Even without translation, the fear was unmistakable. "This is bad. Really bad." The translation matrix processed the alien languages with remarkable speed. One of the few technologies humanity had managed to develop that actually impressed the galactic community. Text began to scroll across Elena's screen, and her blood ran cold. "They're under attack," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her system. "The Ravager Collective has entered their system with a harvester fleet. Billions of civilians, minimal defenses. They're begging for help." Reyes's expression darkened. "The Ravagers? I thought they were just rumors." "Apparently not." Elena's fingers moved with practiced precision, cataloging and organizing the incoming data. According to these transmissions, they've already neutralized Cathora's orbital defenses and started landing harvester ships, The Cathorans are broadcasting on every channel they can access. Any response from the Council? Reyes asked, already knowing the answer. Elena switched to monitoring the official Galactic Council emergency channels. Silence. Nothing. Not even an acknowledgement. Standard protocol, Reyes muttered. Non-interference in regional conflicts. Elena's hands stilled over her console. This isn't a conflict, Commander. It's an extermination. She pulled up one of the Cathoran transmissions, translating it in real time through her neural interface. The alien's voice, high-pitched and trembling, filled the monitoring room. Children sheltering in the northern caverns. Coordinates attached. Our defensive grid has failed. The harvesters have begun processing in the southern hemisphere. 2 billion already lost. Please, anyone. We have no military capacity to resist. The Council refuses our pleas. If anyone can hear this. The transmission cut off abruptly. Elena stared at the silent console, then looked up at Reyes. Something had shifted in her expression. Professional detachment, giving way to resolute determination. We need to alert Earth Command, she said quietly. Now. Reyes hesitated. Dr. Vasquez, you know the protocols. We're observers, not... Not what? Not saviors? Not decent sentient beings with a conscience? Elena stood, straightening to her full height. Commander, billions of lives are being extinguished while we debate protocol. What's the point of listening if we refuse to hear? For 3 seconds, Reyes said nothing. Then he nodded once, sharply. I'll establish a direct link to Admiral Cole. This is above my pay grade. Within minutes, the large view screen at the front of the monitoring room flickered to life, revealing the stern features of Admiral Marcus Cole, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Fleet. His silver hair was cropped close to his skull, and deep lines etched his face, evidence of decades spent building humanity's first line of defense against a galaxy that viewed them with suspicion at best, hostility at worst. Commander Reyes, Dr. Vasquez, he acknowledged, his voice clipped. I understand you're reporting an emergency situation. Elena stepped forward. Admiral, we've intercepted multiple distress calls from the Cathoran system. They're under attack by the Ravager Collective. Billions already dead, with billions more at immediate risk. The Galactic Council is maintaining radio silence on all emergency channels. Cole's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. The Ravagers. You're certain? The Cathorans identified them specifically, Elena confirmed, transferring the translated transmissions to his secure channel. They match all intelligence profiles we've compiled from intercepted communications. Harvester ships, systematic planetary clearance, no negotiations. The Admiral was silent for a long moment, reviewing the data on a screen outside their view. When he looked up again, his jaw was set. Dr. Vasquez, I need you to compile everything you have on the Cathoran situation. Tactical assessments, cultural information, anything that might be relevant to a potential response. Commander Reyes, maintain your monitoring protocols but prioritize Cathoran transmissions. Elena felt her heart rate quicken. A potential response, Admiral? You're considering intervention? Cole's expression remained impassive. I'm considering all options, Doctor. That's my job. The President will make the final decision, but she'll need complete information. He paused. This goes without saying, but maintain absolute communication security. The last thing we need is for the Council to learn we're even discussing this. The transmission ended, leaving Elena staring at the blank screen. Well, Reyes said after a moment, I guess we're not just observers anymore. Over the next 12 hours, Elena barely left her station. More Cathoran transmissions poured in, each more desperate than the last. She organized them meticulously, building a comprehensive picture of the unfolding genocide. The Cathorans were a peaceful, technologically advanced species with minimal military capacity. Their culture prized intellectual achievement and artistic expression. They had been council members for centuries, but had specialized in sciences and cultural exchange rather than warfare. The Ravagers showed no interest in negotiation. Their harvester ships descended on population centers, extracting resources, including the Cathorans themselves, with mechanical efficiency. Elena discovered that the term harvester was horrifyingly literal. The ships processed organic matter, converting it into fuel and materials. At 02:17 station time, her console chimed with an incoming secure transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Cole's face appeared on her private screen. "Dr. Vasquez, are you alone?" Elena glanced around the nearly empty monitoring room. The night shift was skeletal, and the nearest technician was 20 meters away. "Yes, Admiral." "Good. I'm sending you classified coordinates. The President has convened an emergency session of the Defense Council. You're being temporarily assigned as Special Advisor on Cathoran affairs. A shuttle will dock with Luna Station in 30 minutes to bring you to Earth Command." Elena blinked in surprise. "Me? I'm not military personnel, Admiral." "Precisely why I need you there. Doctor, this situation requires more than military perspective." His voice lowered slightly. "Be prepared for significant resistance to any proposed action. The Galactic Council's non-interference policies exist for a reason, and breaking them would have severe consequences." "With respect, Admiral," Elena replied, her voice equally quiet. "I'm more concerned with the consequences of doing nothing." Something almost like approval flickered across Cole's face before his professional mask returned. 30 minutes, Dr. Vasquez. Bring everything you have." 29 minutes later, Elena boarded the military shuttle, her neural interface loaded with every piece of information she had compiled on the Cathoran crisis. The journey to Earth was brief, but gave her time to organize her thoughts. What could humanity possibly do? Their fleet was advanced but small, designed for defensive operations, not deep space interventions. The Ravagers reportedly fielded massive armadas, and the Cathoran system was several jumps away through hyperspace. And then, there was the Council to consider. Humanity existed on the margins of galactic society, tolerated but not welcomed. Direct intervention in another system's affairs would violate every protocol they had reluctantly agreed to follow. But as the shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, Elena found herself thinking not of protocols or consequences, but of the Cathoran transmissions. The terror in those alien voices. The desperate pleas for help that went unanswered. Earth Command was a sprawling complex beneath the Rocky Mountains. A reinforced bunker designed to withstand everything from nuclear strikes to orbital bombardment. Elena was escorted through multiple security checkpoints before being led into a large, circular chamber where 24 of humanity's highest-ranking military and political leaders sat around a holographic display table. Admiral Cole nodded to her as she entered, gesturing to an empty seat beside him. On his other side sat President Victoria Hayes, her dark skin contrasting with the silver threading through her tight curls. Hayes's expression was grave as she studied the holographic display of the Cathoran system. "Dr. Vasquez," the President acknowledged, "Admiral Cole speaks highly of your analysis capabilities. We need your expertise now." "Madam President," Elena replied with a respectful nod, "I've compiled everything we know about the current situation." "Then, let's not waste time," Hayes said, addressing the assembled leaders. "You've all received the preliminary reports. The Ravager Collective is conducting what appears to be a systematic extermination of the Cathoran civilization. The Galactic Council has apparently chosen not to intervene. The question before us is simple but profound. Should we?" The room erupted in overlapping arguments. General Williams, commander of Earth's ground forces, was the first to make himself heard above the din. "Madam President, with all due respect, this is madness. Our fleet isn't designed for long-range offensive operations. We'd be risking everything we've built for the defense of Earth to help aliens who've never shown us anything but contempt. The Cathorans aren't the Council, Elena interjected, earning a sharp look from several military officials. They're scientists and artists. They have no military to speak of. And they're dying by the billions while we debate. Dr. Vasquez makes a valid point, Admiral Cole said, his calm voice cutting through the tension. But so does General Williams. Our fleet is formidable but limited. A full deployment to the Cathoran system would leave Earth vulnerable. To what? Elena asked. The Council barely acknowledges our existence. The quarantine works both ways. They stay out as much as we stay in. Defense Secretary Alvarez cleared his throat. The political ramifications would be severe. We'd be violating every agreement we've made with the Council. They could impose additional sanctions, further technological restrictions. They're already restricting us in every meaningful way, countered Dr. Khatri, the science advisor. Perhaps demonstrating our capability would force them to reconsider their assessment of humanity. Or confirm their worst fears about us, Alvarez shot back. President Hayes raised a hand, silencing the debate. Let's be clear about what we're discussing. Not the politics or the risks, the morality. An advanced civilization is being systematically destroyed. They've asked for help. No one else is responding. She looked around the table. If we do nothing, what does that say about us? What kind of species do we want to be? The room fell silent. Admiral Cole, Hayes continued, if, and I emphasize if, we decided to intervene, what would a response look like? Cole touched the holographic display, expanding the tactical overlay of the Cathoran system. Based on Dr. Vasquez's intelligence, the Ravagers have committed approximately 60 vessels to the Cathoran operation. We could deploy the first and third fleets, 8 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, 24 destroyers, and support vessels. Hyperspace jump would take 48 hours at maximum sustainable speed. We'd be outnumbered, General Williams pointed out. Yes, Cole acknowledged. But our technology is advanced. The Ravagers rely on numbers, not sophistication. And they're not expecting resistance. Elena leaned forward. The latest Cathoran transmissions indicate that billions of civilians have taken shelter in underground complexes and asteroid bases throughout the system. If we could disrupt the Ravager harvesting operations and establish secure evacuation corridors. We're talking about a full-scale military intervention, Alvarez said, shaking his head. The implications are less important than doing what's right, President Hayes interrupted. She stood, placing her palms flat on the table. I've heard enough. I'm authorizing deployment of the first and third fleets to the Cathoran system under Authorization Alpha 77. A murmur ran through the room. Authorization Alpha 77 was the highest level of military deployment, never before activated. Admiral Cole will command the operation, Hayes continued. Dr. Vasquez, you will accompany the fleet as special advisor on Cathoran affairs. Your linguistic expertise will be crucial for coordination with survivors. Elena felt the weight of 24 stares. Madam President, I'm not military personnel. I've never been on a combat deployment. This is unprecedented for all of us. Doctor, Hayes replied, but we need your skills where they'll do the most good. She looked around the table. Make no mistake, this decision will change humanity's place in the galaxy. Whether for better or worse remains to be seen. But I refuse to watch a genocide unfold when we have the power to stop it. She straightened, her voice ringing with authority. You have your orders. Deployment begins immediately. The chamber emptied quickly as commanders rushed to implement the president's directive. Elena found herself walking alongside Admiral Cole toward the command center. Are you ready for this, Dr. Vasquez? He asked quietly. Elena thought of the Cathoran transmissions, the desperate voices pleading for help that never came. No, she admitted, but neither is anyone else. Sometimes you just have to act. Cole nodded, a hint of approval in his expression. Precisely why the President wanted you on this mission. Report to the OSS Intrepid in 3 hours. Pack light. We're making history, and it rarely waits for luggage. Preparation for humanity's first interstellar military intervention proceeded with remarkable efficiency. Within 6 hours, the first and third fleets were assembled in high Earth orbit, a formidable array of warships that represented the pinnacle of human military technology. Elena boarded the OSS Intrepid, Admiral Cole's flagship, with nothing but a small duffel bag and her neural interface unit. She was assigned quarters near the command deck, a practical arrangement that emphasized her role as advisor rather than passenger. As the fleet prepared for hyperspace jump, Elena continued monitoring Cathoran transmissions. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. The Ravagers had expanded their harvesting operations to the second and third planets in the system, targeting refugee camps and orbital habitats. "How many are left?" Cole asked, joining her in the ship's communication center. "Based on transmission sources and reported shelter capacities, perhaps 6 billion, Elena replied, not looking up from her console. "Out of an original population of 15 billion. Cole's expression remained impassive, but his eyes hardened. "We'll be there in 48 hours. "Admiral," Elena said hesitantly, "may I ask what our actual plan is? We're outnumbered, entering a system we've never physically visited, to fight an enemy we've only heard about in intercepted communications. An excellent summary of our disadvantages, Doctor," Cole replied dryly. "But you're forgetting our advantages. 1. The Ravagers aren't expecting resistance. 2. Our technological edge, particularly in targeting systems and shield modulation. And 3. He paused. "We're fighting for something more than resources. Moral clarity can be a powerful force multiplier." Before Elena could respond, Captain Morrison, the Intrepid's commander, approached with a datapad. "Fleet is ready for jump sequence, Admiral," he reported. "All ships reporting green status." Cole nodded. "Execute hyperspace transition, Captain. Let's make this count." The jump to hyperspace was simultaneously less and more dramatic than Elena had expected. There was no violent lurch, no sense of extreme acceleration, just a subtle shift in the quality of light coming through the viewports, and a faint vibration through the deck plates. The stars outside smeared into streaks of light, then vanished altogether, replaced by the swirling blue-black topology of hyperspace. For the next 48 hours, the fleet traveled through this dimensional shortcut, covering distances that would take years at conventional speeds. Elena used the time to continue analyzing Cathoran transmissions and preparing briefing materials for the command staff. The Cathorans were fundamentally different from humans, 6-limbed arthropoid beings evolved on a low-gravity world. But their emotional responses were recognizably similar. Fear, grief, desperation. These translated across the species barrier with painful clarity. Elena was particularly struck by a transmission from what appeared to be a Cathoran educator, sheltering with hundreds of juveniles in a subterranean research facility. The alien spoke with remarkable composure despite the circumstances, describing how they were teaching the young ones songs to keep their spirits up while the harvester ships passed overhead. "We maintain hope," the translator rendered from the clicking, whistling Cathoran speech. "Though the Council abandons us and darkness falls, we maintain hope that somewhere in this vast galaxy, someone hears our song." 12 hours before arrival, Admiral Cole convened his command staff in the Intrepid's tactical center. Fleet captains attended via holographic projection, their faces floating above the central display table. "Our intelligence is limited but sufficient for planning purposes," Cole began. "Dr. Vasquez has compiled transmission data that gives us a reasonable picture of Ravager deployments and Cathoran survivor concentrations." He activated the holographic display, showing a detailed model of the Cathoran system. 5 planets orbiting a yellow star, with dozens of moons and an extensive asteroid belt. The Ravagers have positioned harvester ships around the 3 innermost planets, with patrol vessels maintaining a defensive perimeter. Based on their deployment pattern, we believe their command vessel is in high orbit around the homeworld, Cathora Prime. Colonel Amy Rodriguez, commander of the Marine Detachment, leaned forward. "What's our objective, Admiral? Full enemy engagement or targeted strikes?" "Both," Cole replied. "This operation has 3 phases. Phase 1. We emerge from hyperspace at the system's edge and eliminate their outer patrol ships before they can alert the main fleet. Lieutenant Parker's intelligence team has identified their communication protocols. We'll be jamming those frequencies the moment we arrive." Lieutenant Tom Parker, a wiry man with cybernetic implants visible at his temples, nodded in confirmation. "Their comms are primitive but robust. We'll have approximately 3 minutes of effective jamming before they adapt." "Phase 2, Cole continued. "We'll target the harvester ships themselves. These are large, relatively immobile vessels currently engaged in resource extraction. They're vulnerable but heavily armored. Captain Morrison will lead the Dreadnought Assault Group against these primary targets." Morrison nodded grimly. "My people are ready, Admiral." Phase 3 involves Marine deployment to secure survivor extraction points. Colonel Rodriguez, your teams will drop to the surface and establish protected corridors for Cathoran civilians. Dr. Vasquez will coordinate with you on survivor communications. Rodriguez glanced at Elena with professional assessment. "No offense, Doctor, but have you ever coordinated a combat drop?" "No, Colonel," Elena replied evenly. "But I've spent the past 5 years listening to aliens talk among themselves. I believe that gives me a unique qualification for telling them we're here to help, instead of harvest." A few chuckles broke the tension. Rodriguez nodded, seemingly satisfied. "The Ravagers outnumber us," Cole concluded. "But they're not expecting resistance. Their vessels are designed for intimidation and resource extraction, not fleet engagement. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we protect those survivors." "Questions?" Captain Liang of the OSS Dauntless raised her hand. "Rules of engagement, Admiral." "Protect the Cathorans at all costs," Cole replied without hesitation. "Neutralize Ravager capacity to continue harvesting operations. Capture enemy command vessels if possible for intelligence purposes." The meeting continued for another hour, with detailed assignments and contingency plans. As the officers dispersed to their stations, Cole held Elena back with a gesture. "Dr. Vasquez, I need to be certain you understand what you're about to witness," he said quietly. "This won't be like monitoring transmissions from Luna Station. Combat is chaotic, brutal, and unpredictable. People will die. Our people." Elena met his gaze steadily. "I understand, Admiral. But I've spent the past week listening to an entire civilization die. Whatever happens next can't be worse than doing nothing." Cole studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Report to the command deck in 10 hours. And try to rest before then. Once we arrive, there won't be time." Rest proved elusive. Elena lay in her quarters, staring at the ceiling as her mind raced through possible scenarios. What if the Ravagers were more formidable than intelligence suggested? What if the Cathorans had already been exterminated? What if the fleet arrived only to be destroyed, leaving Earth defenseless? She finally gave up on sleep and returned to the communication center, continuing to monitor the weakening Cathoran transmissions. As the hours passed, fewer and fewer signals reached the fleet. Either the Cathorans were running out of power, or they were running out of people to send messages. At T-1 hour to hyperspace exit, Elena reported to the command deck as ordered. The atmosphere was tense but focused, crew members moving with practiced efficiency as they prepared for combat operations. Admiral Cole stood at the central command station, reviewing final tactical displays. "Dr. Vasquez," he acknowledged, "I've assigned you to auxiliary communications. You'll be coordinating with Lieutenant Parker's team to manage Cathoran responses once we establish contact." Elena nodded, taking her position at the designated console. The neural interface connected seamlessly with the ship's systems, giving her access to the full communications array. "Fleet reports ready for hyperspace exit," Captain Morrison announced. "All weapon systems online. Defense shields at maximum capacity." Cole straightened, his voice carrying across the command deck. "All hands. Battle stations. Prepare for hyperspace exit in 3, 2, 1. The swirling patterns of hyperspace beyond the viewports suddenly collapsed, snapping back into the sharp points of normal stars. The Intrepid shuddered slightly as it transitioned back to conventional space, its massive engines adjusting to compensate. For a brief moment, there was silence on the command deck. Then, the tactical displays exploded with information as the sensors detected the Ravager fleet. 67 enemy vessels detected, reported the tactical officer. Patrol group at coordinates 227 Mark 43. Range 20,000 kilometers. Deploy fighter screen, Cole ordered calmly. Cruiser groups 1 and 2. Execute flanking maneuver. Target patrol vessels only. Communications. Initiate jamming protocols. The battle began with startling swiftness. Human fighters, sleek, agile craft designed for void combat, streaked toward the unprepared Ravager patrol ships. The larger Earth vessels moved with precision, their formation splitting to encircle the outer Ravager defenses. Elena watched the tactical displays with a mixture of awe and horror as the first phase of the battle unfolded. The Ravager patrol ships, caught completely by surprise, attempted to scatter and alert their main fleet. But the human jamming protocols prevented their transmissions from reaching the inner system. "Patrol group neutralized," reported the tactical officer after several minutes of intense combat. 14 enemy vessels destroyed, 3 disabled, and being boarded for intelligence gathering. No survivors detected from the remaining vessels. Cole nodded grimly. Phase 1 complete. Proceed to Phase 2 deployment. All ships. Advance to inner system coordinates. Maintain jamming protocols until we engage the main harvester fleet. The Earth fleet accelerated toward the inner planets, where the bulk of the Ravager forces were concentrated. Long-range sensors showed the massive harvester ships in orbit around Cathora Prime. Ugly, functional vessels that resembled industrial processing plants more than spacecraft. "Receiving new Cathoran transmissions," Elena reported, her neural interface filtering the sudden surge of signals. "They've detected our arrival. Multiple sources requesting identification and expressing disbelief." "Open a general broadcast channel," Cole ordered. "All frequencies the Cathorans might monitor." Elena established the connection, nodding to the Admiral when it was ready. "This is Admiral Marcus Cole of the Earth Defense Fleet," he began, his voice steady and authoritative. "We have received your distress calls and have come to render assistance. Cathoran civilians should proceed to designated shelter points. We will establish secure extraction corridors once the Ravager threat has been neutralized. Stand by for further instructions." He gestured for Elena to take over. She swallowed hard, then began speaking in the closest approximation of Cathoran speech patterns that her neural interface could manage. "People of Cathora, we have heard your song across the stars. We are not of your world, nor of your council, but we recognize your call for help. Please transmit shelter coordinates so we may protect you. Help has arrived." For several seconds, there was no response. Then a flood of transmissions poured in, coordinates, population numbers, status reports, and messages of stunned gratitude. "They're responding," Elena reported, tears pricking her eyes as she processed the information. "Transmitting shelter coordinates to tactical." The command deck erupted in focused activity as the fleet approached engagement range with the main Ravager force. The harvester ships, finally alerted to the human presence despite the jamming, began to reorient themselves, auxiliary weapon systems powering up. "They're preparing defensive positions," Morrison observed, moving harvesters into formation behind combat vessels. "As expected," Cole replied. "Execute attack pattern Delta. Dreadnoughts to primary targets. Cruisers provide screening fire. Destroyers maintain perimeter and prevent disengagement. What followed was the largest space battle in human history. The Earth fleet, outnumbered but technologically superior, engaged the Ravager forces with devastating precision. Dreadnoughts targeted the massive harvester ships, their advanced weapon systems penetrating the heavy armor to strike at vital systems. Cruisers engaged the Ravager combat vessels, while destroyers maintained a defensive screen and prevented enemy ships from escaping to hyperspace. Elena could barely keep up with the tactical displays as she continued coordinating with Cathoran transmissions. The neural interface streamed information directly into her consciousness: shelter locations, survivor conditions, Ravager ground forces, all of which she relayed to the appropriate command channels. "Dr. Vasquez," Cole called over the tactical chatter, "we need landing coordinates for the Marine deployment. Where are the highest concentrations of survivors?" Elena focused on the planetary display, cross-referencing transmission sources with topographical data. Northern continent, subterranean complex at these coordinates. Approximately 300,000 survivors, including juveniles. Secondary concentration in the equatorial island chain. Research outposts converted to shelters. Cole relayed the information to Colonel Rodriguez, who was preparing her Marine forces for deployment. First wave drops in 5 minutes. Secure a perimeter and establish evacuation protocols. The battle in orbit reached its crescendo as the dreadnoughts engaged the largest harvester ships. The Intrepid shuddered as it absorbed enemy fire, its advanced shields flaring with energy dispersion. "Port shields at 60%, reported the defense officer. "Minor damage to decks 17 through 22. "Maintain course," Cole ordered. "Target the command harvester with main batteries. Fire when ready." The Intrepid's primary weapons, massive particle accelerators mounted along the ship's spine, discharged with a subsonic rumble that vibrated through the hull. On the tactical display, Elena watched as the energy beams struck the Ravager command vessel, cutting through its defenses like a surgeon's scalpel. "Direct hit," Morrison reported. "Enemy command vessel critically damaged. Their fleet coordination is breaking down." Around them, the rest of the Earth fleet pressed the advantage, targeting harvester ships with methodical precision. The Ravager combat vessels fought with increasing desperation, but without central coordination. Their numerical superiority meant little against the disciplined human attack. Colonel Rodriguez reports ground teams deployed. The communications officer announced, "Establishing secure zones at primary shelter locations. Ravager ground forces retreating from Marine positions." For 3 hours, the battle raged across the Cathoran system. Earth ships took damage. The destroyer Vigilant was lost with all hands, and several other vessels reported critical systems failures. But the Ravager fleet suffered catastrophic losses. Harvester ships, never designed for serious combat, proved vulnerable once their escort vessels were neutralized. Finally, the tactical display showed the remaining Ravager ships breaking formation, attempting to retreat to the system's edge, where they could safely jump to hyperspace. "They're running," Morrison observed, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. "Let them go," Cole ordered. "Our priority is securing the survivor extraction points. Maintain defensive positions around the planet and continue Marine deployment to secondary locations." As the immediate threat of the Ravager fleet receded, Elena found herself coordinating directly with Cathoran leaders emerging from the shelters. Through her neural interface, she established real-time translation protocols that allowed for coherent communication despite the vast biological differences between humans and Cathorans. "The harvester ground units are deactivating," reported a Cathoran designated as Scientific Coordinator Telvan. Without control signals from their ships, they appear to be entering dormancy protocols. "Our Marines will secure those areas," Elena assured them. "Can you provide population assessments? How many survived?" The statistics were grim. Of the 15 billion Cathorans who had populated the system before the Ravager attack, fewer than 6 billion remained. Most were injured, traumatized, or suffering from resource deprivation after days in overcrowded shelters. Dr. Lin Mei, the fleet's chief medical officer, coordinated relief efforts with remarkable efficiency. Medical teams deployed alongside the Marines, establishing field hospitals and treatment centers at major shelter locations. Their physiology is remarkably adaptive, Lin reported during a brief communication with the command deck. Despite significant differences from human baseline, they respond well to basic trauma protocols. The biggest challenges are psychological, many witnessed family units being processed by harvester units. On the planet's surface, Colonel Rodriguez's Marines secured larger areas with each passing hour. Lieutenant Parker's intelligence teams captured intact Ravager ground units and began extracting data from their control systems. "Admiral," Parker reported from the surface, his face grim on the command deck's communication screen. "We've accessed the Ravager harvesting logs. You need to see this immediately." The files transferred to the Intrepid secure system revealed a horror beyond what anyone had anticipated. The Ravagers had conducted similar harvesting operations against at least 37 other civilizations over the past century. In each case, the pattern was identical: complete resource extraction, including the processing of sentient beings for raw materials. Most disturbing of all were the attached communication logs, showing that the Galactic Council had been aware of these operations. Non-interference protocols had been formally invoked in each case, classifying the Ravager activities as internal resource management disputes outside Council jurisdiction. "They knew," Elena whispered, staring at the evidence with growing horror. "The Council knew this was happening and did nothing, not just with the Cathorans, with dozens of civilizations, billions upon billions of lives." Cole's expression hardened as he reviewed the data. "Compile everything, secure multiple copies, and transmit a complete package to Earth Command. Maximum encryption. President Hayes needs to see this immediately." Over the next 3 days, the Earth fleet consolidated its position in the Cathoran system. Ravager technology was cataloged and contained. Survivor camps became organized relief centers. The remaining Cathoran leadership emerged from deep shelters, still struggling to comprehend that help had come not from their ancient allies in the Galactic Council, but from Earth, a quarantined world they had barely known existed. On the 4th day, President Hayes herself addressed the combined human-Cathoran gathering via secure transmission from Earth Command. Her image projected above the reclaimed central plaza of the Cathoran capital. Now, a medical coordination center staffed by human doctors and Cathoran medical practitioners. "People of Cathora," she began, her voice translated into Cathoran speech patterns. "I speak to you with profound sorrow for your losses and deep respect for your resilience. What happened to your civilization was not merely an attack, but a crime against all sentient life. That such crimes have been permitted to continue unchallenged is a stain upon galactic civilization itself." She paused, her expression resolute. "I have reviewed the evidence recovered from Ravager data systems. The pattern of harvesting operations, conducted against dozens of civilizations, with the knowledge and tacit acceptance of the Galactic Council, represents a fundamental failure of the principles that should unite all thinking beings." Elena, standing beside Admiral Cole in the plaza, felt a shiver of anticipation. Hayes's next words would irreversibly alter humanity's relationship with the wider galaxy. "Therefore, as President of Earth, I am authorizing Admiral Cole to present this evidence directly to the Galactic Council. Furthermore, I am announcing the formation of the Alliance of Free Worlds, a mutual defense pact open to all civilizations who share our commitment to protecting the fundamental rights of sentient beings." The Cathoran representatives, their compound eyes gleaming in the artificial light, exchanged meaningful glances. Scientific Coordinator Telvan stepped forward, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into smoothly synthesized English. "President Hayes, The people of Cathora offer our profound gratitude and formally request membership in this alliance of free worlds. Our civilization has existed for millennia under the illusion of council protection. You have shown us a different path, one where the strong defend the vulnerable rather than exploit them. 1 week after the battle, Elena found herself aboard a diplomatic vessel bound for the Galactic Council's headquarters, a massive orbital construct known as the Confluence. Admiral Cole led the delegation, with Elena serving as chief translator and cultural advisor. The evidence they carried was damning. Detailed records of 37 genocides, complete with council acknowledgments and deliberate non-intervention decisions. The Ravager command vessel had maintained meticulous records, including communication intercepts that revealed council members referring to harvested civilizations as regrettable but necessary resource redistribution. The council chamber, a vast amphitheater designed to accommodate representatives of hundreds of species, fell silent as Admiral Cole presented the evidence. Elena translated his words into 17 different council languages simultaneously through her neural interface, ensuring that no nuance was lost. The Earth Alliance does not recognize the legitimacy of non-interference protocols that permit genocide, Cole stated, his voice echoing through the chamber. Effective immediately. We are establishing protected zones around all civilizations currently targeted by Ravager operations. Any harvester vessels entering these zones will be considered hostile and engaged accordingly. Outcry erupted from the council delegates. Accusations of warmongering, of violating established galactic order, of endangering the delicate balance of interstellar relations. The council first speaker, a towering, crystalline entity, finally restored order with a resonating harmonic pulse. Earth representative, the first speaker intoned. Your species has been granted observer status as a courtesy. You have no authority to establish interstellar policy or to engage in military operations outside your designated quarantine zone. Cole's expression remained impassive. With respect, first speaker, we did not request permission. I am here to inform the Council of decisions already made and actions already taken. The Cathoran system is now under Earth Alliance protection, as are the Viridian and Talaxian systems, where we have credible intelligence indicating imminent Ravager operations. He gestured, and Elena transmitted the complete evidence package to the Council's central database, too large to be easily deleted or concealed. This information is being simultaneously broadcast on all emergency channels throughout Council space. Cole continued, all civilizations now have access to the truth about the Ravager Collective and the Council's complicity in their operations. The chamber erupted again, but with a different tone. Delegates turning to each other in confusion and alarm as their personal communication devices began receiving the transmitted evidence. Elena watched as the carefully maintained facade of Council unity cracked. Smaller, vulnerable civilizations whose representatives had previously remained silent now voiced their horror and outrage. Larger powers that had benefited from Ravager resource redistribution tried desperately to maintain control of the narrative. In the chaos, Cole led the Earth delegation from the chamber. Their message had been delivered. What followed would reshape galactic politics for centuries to come. Do you think it will make a difference? Elena asked quietly as they boarded their vessel for the return journey. Cole considered the question. Look at your communication panel. Dr. Vasquez, what do you see? Elena checked her neural interface, then gasped softly. Dozens, no, hundreds, of new transmissions were flooding in from systems throughout Council space. Distress calls, yes, but also declarations of support, requests for alliance, offers of resources and technology. They're reaching out to us, she breathed. All these civilizations... They've lived in fear for too long, Cole replied. Fear of the Ravagers, fear of Council retribution, fear of being the next to be harvested. We've shown them an alternative. 3 months after the Cathoran intervention. Elena stood in the observation dome of the newly constructed Alliance Coordination Center, built in orbit around Earth. Below her, the blue-green planet rotated serenely, no longer isolated from galactic affairs. The alliance of free worlds had grown rapidly, with 32 civilizations formally joining and dozens more in negotiations. Earth, once quarantined as a death world, harboring dangerous primitives, now stood as the central pillar of a new interstellar order built on mutual defense and respect for sentient rights. Admiral Cole joined her at the viewport, his uniform now bearing the insignia of the Alliance Defense Force, rather than simply Earth Command. "Quite a view," he observed. "Hard to believe how much has changed in such a short time." Elena nodded. "The Cathoran reconstruction is proceeding faster than projected. Their scientific knowledge, combined with our military technology, has already produced significant advancements. The medical exchange program alone has—" She stopped as her neural interface alerted her to an incoming priority transmission. Cole received the same alert, his expression shifting to concerned focus. "Multiple SOS signals detected," Elena reported, scanning the information. "The Arctarian Collective is reporting Ravager sightings in their outer system. Harvester ships observed entering their asteroid mining colonies." "The Ravagers are testing our resolve," Cole said grimly. "Seeing if our protection extends beyond the founding Alliance members." Elena's interface pinged again as more transmissions arrived. "Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from the Tarsian Confederation and the Vordelian Republic. Similar reports. Ravager harvester groups entering their territories." Cole's jaw tightened. "They're forcing our hand. 3 simultaneous incursions, all at the edges of Alliance space. They want to see if we'll stretch ourselves thin or abandon our principles when challenged." Elena studied the tactical display, watching as more distress signals appeared, points of desperate light in the darkness of space. "What do we do?" she asked quietly. Cole straightened, his voice firm with resolve. "Exactly what we promised. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Alert Alliance Command. All available fleets to deploy immediately. Priority to civilian evacuation and defense." As Cole strode away to coordinate the response, Elena remained at the viewport, watching Earth rotate below. The distress calls continued to arrive, more civilizations reaching out in terror and hope, their voices echoing across the void. This was just the beginning, she realized. The Ravagers would not easily abandon their harvesting operations. The Council would not quickly relinquish its power. The struggle to establish a new order, one based on mutual protection rather than exploitation, would be long and costly. But as she turned from the viewport to join the emergency response team, Elena felt something she hadn't expected. Certainty. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not through conquest or commerce, but through compassion. They had heard a desperate song across the stars and answered it. Whatever came next, they would face it together, Deathworlders and their allies, united by a simple, powerful truth. The strong have a duty to protect the weak. That was worth fighting for. That was worth any sacrifice. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, other civilizations were listening, learning, and finding hope.